Then all the
we hope,
posting would leave if you want the posting.
yeah. And Amit, hope everything is fine in Houston.
I'm still in New York, Chakre.
Hi. Oh, okay, good. Hi, Garrett. Nice to have you here. Thanks. All right. So welcome everybody. We'll begin on time. So this is the panelists, Rajesh Nair, Sanjay, Jose, and myself. I'll be mostly curating it. Just quick things to keep in mind. Keep your video on if possible. Show your name of company. These are our Catalyst links to follow us in the various social media. And thank you for joining us. Over to you, Rajesh. Just quick housekeeping elements. Please make sure that you keep your video off or keep your video on mute for sure. And also, if you have anything to comment about the questions, and we can take a lot of those things on chat. Also, I'm posting a few things to take care of while during the session, as soon as I can paste that. Just keep your video on as possible. Show your name, unmute when you speak, and be present. Please ask questions in the chat window, and we'll take it up as we go forward. There you go.
I will just share the Catalyst video quickly before we get started, okay?
Absolutely, absolutely, Yasmin. Take it away.
Here we go.
2030 started life as a WhatsApp group among social entrepreneurs, connecting to envision real transformational change. Launched at the World Economic Forum in January 2020, it's grown into a global movement accelerating change to ensure the SDGs are reached by 2030. Fueled by passion, our 550 members working in 175 countries have collectively put in an amazing 50,000 volunteer hours, touching the lives of 2 billion people. And we're driven by values, to which we hold ourselves accountable. 2020 was a busy year, co-creating 3 reports with partners and producing one of our own. Inviting high-level guests to participate in the Catalyzing Change campaign, hosting fireside chats and expert hours, which will be continuing in 2021. To celebrate our achievements, together we placed our supporters in the limelight with the first Catalyst 2030 Awards for Systemic Change. With the blessing of the Dalai Lama, we celebrated finalists and winners in the following categories: special recognition for our early supporters, individual philanthropists, donor organizations, philanthropic intermediaries, corporate organizations, bi- and multilateral organizations, and 4 regional winners in the category of national governments. And now on to Catalyzing Change Week 2021. During this social entrepreneur-led event, we bring together diverse stakeholders in over 100 sessions to showcase their systems change efforts and the best practices that can accelerate our work in pursuit of the SDGs.
Thank you, Yasmin. It was lovely. So just a quick introduction to the session. So we're going to talk about entrepreneurial mindset, and Rajesh will be kicking us off. And then what also we'll be doing is give a little bit of deep dive into a methodology called the Purpose Launchpad and the Introduction to Purpose Alliance, an organization that is supporting entrepreneurs and has an amazing moonshot, very similar to that of Catalyst. With that, I invite Rajesh to kick us off. Yasmin, can we do a quick poll? I want to see how our audience reacts to that poll. The question is, are entrepreneurs made or born? Okay. Okay, go ahead. Okay, so they're both made. Nobody is believing that they're born. Okay, they're made or they're both. Okay, that's amazing. So we'll take another 20 seconds. If 86% has voted, okay, let's have the other two people. Yes, Gareth, absolutely. Baby pruners, that's what I think you're preaching to the choir, but I'd love to take you up on that. That's what we believe here, that the only training that kids need to be given is their first taste of entrepreneurship, and that's it. They're on their own. So 20, I'll invite the other two people to also vote. There's somebody coming in. Yes, I'd love to hear that more about that, Neville. All right, let's close the poll and show the results to our to the audience. There you go. So there is one person that we'll have to convince that entrepreneurs can be made. Otherwise, many of you believe that there are many are born, some are some are made, or many are made as well. All right, great. I hope everybody could see the results. Quick check on that from one of the.
It is 50% made, 45% both, and 5% born.
Okay.
That was the last
Great.
I saw.
All right, fantastic. Over to you, Rajesh.
Okay. I don't know what time zone everyone is. So good star, morning, evening, everything. When I'm currently in my village where I was born in India right now, and on my way back to Chicago, Boston in the next few days. When I was 10 years old, a radio repairman showed me what's inside a radio. That was the only tech I had at that time. That changed my life. He showed me how to do things. I became an engineer, studied electrical engineering, design of products, designed hundreds of products in Boston area, started several companies. And later, my research at MIT was on, can you change kids and youth to become entrepreneurs? So I did a lot of work in that for the last 8 years. And my current goal is to see if we can create 1 million entrepreneurs and innovators, because I believe all of SDG issues can be addressed if we can create innovators and entrepreneurs who can solve problems. So today, with the post-COVID challenge of severe job loss, question is, who's going to create these jobs? Okay, corporations won't do it till the economy stabilizes. Governments can't just create jobs, but the primary folks who can create jobs are entrepreneurs. For the last 40-50 years, the Kaufman study has shown that entrepreneurs have been positive job creators every year, and existing companies have been mostly negative job creators. So yes, entrepreneurs create jobs. Now the question is, can entrepreneurs be made? Okay, yeah, I think you're all right. You 50% is right. You can make entrepreneurs. So can they be made? So this has been my work for the last 8 years. So current entrepreneurship programs around the world, they pick a few people who have shown interest in starting up, or have an idea, or have they are ready to start something, and then help them build their enterprise. So most entrepreneurship programs that you see around are enterprise creation programs. My focus was on the 99% of the people who never thought they could be, never wanted to be, and never actually ever got to that point where they feel they can start. And how do you bring them out and hopefully make them jump? So in a university kind of a framework, you have students, and some of them aspire to become entrepreneurs, some of them become student entrepreneurs, and some of them become experienced entrepreneurs. And when I was doing my thesis and research at that point, in India, the conversion ratio was about 5,000 to 1, and it's more anecdotal. And if you really look at it, it could be anywhere from 2,000 to 10,000 to 1. So if you look at any university, how many students graduated in the last 10 years, and how many of them started a company while they were a student, and the ratio would be somewhere around few thousands to one, and that is a serious loss of potential. And if you think of this as a stock and flow model, where some of the students, these are the taps that control the flow from one to the other, within a school or a university or a community, if you have an ecosystem that starts to open the tap, and the ecosystem is enhanced by investors, entrepreneurs, or university programs and government programs and such, but still they are still focusing on taking aspiring entrepreneurs to build them up into experienced entrepreneurs, student entrepreneurs. And the focus here is, how do you take the large majority of the students, and how, if you can actually make that first tap open. This is like the water main coming into your house, and all the others are like the taps inside your bathroom. If your main water main is closed, you don't have too much flow. If you can open the main water main, you can actually create the entrepreneur flow by about 100 times. And how do you, that is the leverage point. And that is what my focus was, all on the pre-entrepreneurship stage. How do you change the mindset to build these kids to say that, okay, I think I can start a company, I want to do something like this. So I talk about pre-entrepreneurship primarily as a state of mind, where it's a skill set and mindset that is required to be an entrepreneur, and the confidence and aspiration to take the first step. So 30, 40 years back, if you ask someone, how did you start up, they would say it was a pretty tall climb, because there were no programs for training entrepreneurs, there was no standard funding programs and such. In the last 10, 20 years, with all the entrepreneurship training programs that came up, you have brought down that wall a little bit. And what I'm looking at is, can we take it all the way to the ground? Can anyone be trained to be a pre-entrepreneur? And the missing link in this whole thing is a pre-entrepreneur. Can anyone be trained to be a pre-entrepreneur and then ride the rest of the ramp? The framework, I told my story early on mainly because I used that to create a framework, and I tested it out on so many unsuspecting kids all over the different parts of the world through actual workshops and collecting data to see how their mindset changes and such. So the first stage is that of a zero. I call it zero because just uninitiated kids, that 99% of the kids who never thought they could be or wanted to be. And the next stage is that of a maker. A maker is where, how do you teach them creativity? How do you build their curiosity? How do you make them build their confidence? And most important, how do you give self-learning skills? Okay, so as part of that, I ran several of these 2-day workshops to see how mindset changes. So a 2-day workshop looks something like this, wherein I took high school students right after high school and taught them ideation, design, CAD, electronics and coding and such. But in 2 days, they have to, the 3D printing and all those things, and in 2 days, they have to make a product and demonstrate it. So this is a baby cradle, okay, and things, I'm sorry, I just skipped the slide. Then I tried it on school kids. This is in Vietnam, where they made a robot that kicks a ball and a goalpost that scores goals. And none of them had an engineering degree, I can promise you that. And in 2 days, they could kind of figure it out. Okay, and this whole purpose was not to teach them or make them masters at anything, but to make them break their fear of learning. And because I am a techie, I know that's what I use as a lure. In a way, I was so happy to see these kids could learn so fast. It doesn't matter where the kids are from. In a way, I was so sad to see that we don't give them that exposure till maybe somewhere in engineering when they go do higher learning, So the next stage is that of an innovator. Innovator has to find problems, identify problems, and use critical thinking and problem solving skills to create solutions. And of course, there's a version of design thinking and a little more than that. And primarily, I use this concept of failure as a way of learning, because when you fail, it says that you have reached the edge of your competence. And I create these controlled failure scenarios where I want my students to fail, which opens up an opportunity to discuss and make them understand why they failed, what happened, and so they can understand it, learn about it, and get over it, and thereby expand their zone of competence. So failure is used as a tool of learning, and there's a whole bunch of things to talk about in risk and failure analysis, all those kind of things. Okay. Then the next stage is that of an entrepreneur. If you know how to find problems, if you know how to create solutions, now the question is, how do you monetize it? How do you think of a problem as an opportunity? How do you create value and such? So they're all systems thinkers. A maker thinks within the product system. It's a mechanical, electrical, coding, all these kind of things. And most engineers are product system thinkers. Most humanities and arts and all those other folks are primarily problem systems thinkers. And you need to kind of take them to the next level. What is the problem? Who causes it? Who suffers? Who are all the stakeholders? How do you approach a solution? And entrepreneur is primarily a business system thinker. What is the problem and how is it an opportunity? What's the value of this opportunity? Who's your customer? And just about the whole bunch of things down from there. So several of my workshops that I do, the class projects, because they have gone through problem identification, value validation and such, have become startups. The class projects have become startups. Now, this is all great, zero to entrepreneur, but how do you get them kick-started? How do you take them from neutral to first gear? So I truly believe you need to an entrepreneur starts at 10 years old, not at 25. So if you really want to create an entrepreneur, you need to intervene very, very early in her life. So we created this program called STEM Lab, Mini Lab, and Maker Lab. STEM Lab is pretty simple. This is in Indonesia and in parts of India. I asked these children to bring trash from home, and we design instruments and interesting products with that. So it really doesn't cost anything. But how do you make them understand basics of STEM? Here we have light and vibration, statics and dynamics and all these kind of things, the basics of physics that they're learning through doing little projects. This is an interesting thing in India, these kids, while they're doing the STEM lab, she created a motor with a coil, a magnet, a battery, and 2 safety pins. And how do you understand these basically, Faraday's laws and such of electromagnetism when it is just theory? And how do you make them learn by doing little projects with that? The mini lab was an experiment to understand the impact of a mentor. So in this village in Gujarat, India, we took youth from different villages and gave them few motors and wheels and switches and power, and asked them to go make a robot with anything they could find, and include children while you're making these robots. And the goal is play football once you make the robot. There is no electronics in this at all. It's just 2 switches which changes the direction of the motor, and play football with it. And the idea is that these children get the first experience in creating things like this with technology and electronics and things like that. And that gives them the first initial kickoff, like I got with the the radio repairman when I was that age. So here, this is in deep villages in Gujarat. So it was amazing to see the kind of impact it had on children. So the most interesting thing is, after that, the local school took this up and made it into an annual obstacle course where they had to go do all these kind of things. And in my experience, the biggest impact it had was on girls, because girls grow up hearing from others that things like this can only be done by boys, and at some age they start to believe it, and then they make their life decisions and education decisions on those kind of thinking. And ideas, how do you break it very early on? You know, we all know, if we tell girls they're pretty, boys they're smart, and that is, imagine the kind of impact it has on these kids over time, you know. And these girls have gone out and made very complex robots in the village with the local carpenter and such, okay. And that, hopefully that has started to change the way they think and approach these kind of things. The last experiment I did was called a maker lab, where everything that you see on the left side is a maker lab on a table, with a 3D printer, electronics, hand tools, power tools. I made 10 of these boxes, maker labs in box, and tried out this experiment in rural government schools. In 10 schools in Malaysia on the border with Thailand, and 7 schools in India outside MYSURU, you know, in villages, all rural government schools. Brought 6 students and 2 teachers, and taught them, ran the workshop, gave them the lab, asked them to take it back to their school, practice with it, make things, show others, teach others, and we mentored them and asked them to come back after 6 months and show what they did. So this is in Malaysia on day 1. These are 13 and 14-year-old children. Their first job was to assemble their own 3D printers with the manual. Of course, we were there to help. Most of them didn't know which way to turn a screwdriver to tighten, so we used to say righty tighty, lefty loosey, so that they know which way to turn. And once they assembled the 3D printer, they had to learn CAD, the simplest CAD we could find, and they created, you know, name tags and stuff like that, and they had to print before lunch on day 1. Okay, if I ask an adult if you can do it, I can tell you most adults would say, no way I can ever do this. Interestingly, these kids did not know they could not do this, and they did it. The experiment in India was a little different, where these children had not ever used a computer. So when they started the workshop, I started with, this is a mouse, this is how you move, this is where you click and type in Google, and this is by end of second day. Okay, these are 13, 14-year-old children from deep villages, and they had absolutely no problem. They were like fish to water. The ones they throw them into that, they just figured out coding, they figured out all these kind of, they were teaching each other. And they were making things like I saw in any other place. So why I show this is the most expensive high school maybe in the US, Phillips Exeter Academy, $70,000 for a high school degree every year, okay? And I ran a program there just to see what is the difference in the rate of learning of these kids. And I'm trying to see if are they any smarter? No, not at all. This, you know, the kids in this village is exactly the same as the kids out here, okay? Only thing is these kids have an iPhone, iPad and an iMac, okay? And the other kids don't have any of these kind of things. But the introduction, the exposure makes all the difference in these in any of these kind of kids. So the kind of stuff that we were trying to measure, one was the learning agility of these children, self-learning, curiosity, research and such, social engagement, how they interact with others, you know, communication, leadership, collaboration, innovation skills, critical thinking, creative confidence and problem-solving skills, and entrepreneurial attitudes. You know, how do you opportunity sensing, resilience each time they fail. After 2-3 times of helping them come back, they do it on their own. And self-efficacy, the confidence to take on an unknown challenge. So, yeah, I truly believe they can be nurtured, no doubt about it. Now the next question is, if you want 1 million, how do you scale it? And the tool is to create ecosystems. So the first experiment I did for ecosystem was in the college in India, where I took 50 students, engineering students, and taught them for 5 weeks, 3 hours a day. And at the end of the day, this is from 2014, while I was doing my thesis, out of the 24 students in the picture, 11 of them did their first startup. Out of the 50, 24 of them did their first startup. And the conversion ratio could be 2 to 1. Okay? So I truly believe it is already in them. The question is, how do you bring it out? In the first year, in a college that had one student startup in the previous 12 years, the first year 11 startups came in, and then it continues. And even today, the ecosystem is there. Almost 100 students are using this thing. And from what the principal said, it's changed their aspiration, changed their direction, academics. And for the first time, students started going to foreign universities, and startups came out. Startup is a byproduct. I'm not expecting it to be an entrepreneur as a capital E entrepreneur who starts company. Is a small E entrepreneur who has the ability, So in the school in Malaysia, we started with 60 students. In a matter of 9 months, there were 150 students who were doing all these things. In the school in India, we trained unemployed youth and asked them to go become mentors in these schools. And it became, in 6 months, 2,000 students were actually working on these things. The kids who had not started a company, they were doing IoT-based light control and Bluetooth-based robot control and things like that after 6 months. This is the education minister of East Timor, and that's a lab I set up for them, where I brought youth, taught them these kind of things, took them out into the field and markets and such, find problems, solve them, and now they are actually going out and teaching school kids. Idea is, how do you make youth more employable, and how do you use them to create the next generation of children who have been transformed. So during COVID, of course, I could not do any of these kind of workshops in person. So we did this experiment, can we do this online? So I created these kits of electronics and tools and such, sent it out to children in different parts of the country and taught online. This is for students from Indian Institute of Technology and even several other colleges. And I truly believe that I think I would use this method now than in person, because in a lab they used to have 1 hour access to a lab in a week. Here they have 24/7 access. Their bedroom is their maker lab, So that completely changes. So what I learned, we are leaving behind they'll say, oh, these kids won't be able to do that. And that's already a soft bigotry of low expectations. If you don't expect, you don't invest. We have to change in our mind. Next thing is, mentors make all the difference, and you need to start early. So yes, entrepreneurs create jobs, they can be nurtured, and ecosystems make all the difference. And today we are trying to build ecosystems in multiple parts. Ecosystems in local ecosystems, in poor communities, not just in schools and colleges. Poor communities, I'm working on people who are coming out of drug habits and after incarceration. How do you change them? Veterans who come back after wars, how do you make them do these kind of things? At a national level, old industries like coal and things like that, where the jobs are going to go away. How do you go there and start to make a change in then underserved communities, native lands, and regional? Of course, in the US is seeing migration. How do you go to the source of the migration and change there so that you can create opportunities there? So with that, that's my goal, to create 1 million entrepreneurs in the next 10 years. By the way, I'm a Catalyst 2030 member, very new member of that too. So with that, I can take any questions, or if I was trying to shoot right through all this. So thank you.
So we'll take questions towards the end. I would like to invite Sanjay to tell us about Purpose Alliance and Purpose Launchpad. Over to you, Sanjay. Before that, Rajesh, do you want to still run the poll again to see how many more are convinced that we can make entrepreneurs?
No, it's okay. I think they're already convinced. I saw in the first poll itself, all of them say they can be made anyway. So
okay. Sounds good. Okay, over to you, Sanjay.
I'm just checking. Can you all see my screen?
Absolutely.
Ah, great. Thank you. Sorry, I just need to close. For some odd reason, I've got. Are you watching my PowerPoint or are you seeing my other screen?
It's PowerPoint. It's perfect.
Okay, no, great. Okay, thank you. So thank you, Chikri. Thank you, everybody. As I was listening to Rajesh, I'm going, okay, well, I think, we both play in the same field. Now the question is, how do we come together and make this better for everybody? So I want to just take a few minutes and talk about Purpose Alliance. And literally, I took the title from individuals to ecosystems, nurturing young entrepreneurs to transform communities. Before I go there, let me just tell you a little bit more about myself. By background, I'm an engineer, very similar to Rajesh and many of you guys, and literally still work in the utility space, work in the strategy, risk, and innovation space. And literally, I think I came from that grouping of people in society that were taught, go to school, get a great education. When you finish getting educated, go and study at a university, a tech, or a college, get a vocation, and then work for the rest of your life. Yeah. My grandparents literally were subsistence tailors. And so literally, in their mind, it was always better for somebody to go and study and be an employee. Literally through working many, many, many years, I started to realize that employment is great. However, there was a part inside me that I was yearning for something more, something bigger, something different, and something of my own. So I started exploring various opportunities to go into business and had several of my own startups. You start a business, you run it for a couple of months, a year or two, it doesn't work, you fail, you do the next, and so on and so forth. And that's been the last 15 years for me. And about 2 or 3 years ago, literally started doing a lot of work around methodologies in terms of innovation, came across OpenEXO, and long story short, as a result of that, met Francisco Palau. And then last year, March or early last year, when COVID struck, Francisco was about to essentially go to South America and start talking. He had various tours set up in terms of speaking to entrepreneurs around innovation and various methodologies. And before you knew it, his trip got cancelled, his talks got cancelled. And he began and essentially thought, okay, hold on, I've got the time, I've got the expertise. Can I do something to plow back into society? And literally set up the first COVID-19 challenge, or we called it EXO challenge at that point in time. A number of us actually got involved with the challenge. And the goal was to ideate solutions around COVID. As part and parcel of the process, essentially, I fell in love with the methodology, just liked the way and the ethos of the way he was doing things. And long story short, a number of us essentially then partnered with Francisco. And over a year later, we now have Purpose Alliance. And literally, I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about Purpose Alliance and what we do. For me personally, people always ask me, so what makes you tick? What floats your boat and what's your hot button? So it's that little statement there, unlocking minds and unleashing humanity. I have a firm belief system that there's a genius in every one of us. And all we need to do is create the right space, the right environment in order for that genius to essentially be unlocked and really impact the world. So let's talk about us. Human beings, I think the only species that we know of that actually dreams, and but we're not just dreamers, we're also doers. We put man on the moon. We send rockets up into space. We put, submarines into the oceans, and we go into the depth of the ocean and we explore. And that's us human beings. And, of late, we're not just talking about people that do, but we're now starting to talk about people that do with purpose. And there's a global movement of people that are now actually purpose-driven individuals that are looking for ways in order to do that are driven by a specific purpose. So let me talk to you now about a little bit more about Purpose Alliance and a little bit more about who we are and what we do. Literally, we've got what we call a massive transformative purpose of empowering extraordinary people to create the future. Our moonshot is essentially to help 1 billion people to make an impact linked to their purpose by the year 2030. And I'm going to stress that. It's our goal, our moonshot, is to help 1 billion people make an impact linked to their purpose by the year 2030. At the end of the day, we firmly believe that if you've got people aspiring towards their purpose, you could have a massive impact on the planet and literally change humanity for the better. Okay. Our mission literally is to awaken people, to unlock their potential, and to do something with it. Like I said earlier on, there's a genius in every one of us. The only question is, how do we unlock it? You know, Rajesh was talking about essentially unlocking the genius in our children. But because you've passed school, passed university, and you're now an adult, doesn't mean you cannot. That genius in you is still there. Doesn't mean it's locked away and it's dormant. One's just going to find a way to awaken it. Yeah. And we do it by making everyone aware that they are extraordinary, providing them with a toolkit and a mindset to make an impact. You know, I think there's no shortage of tools in the world, but one of the greatest shortages in the world is mindset. It's about helping develop the right mindset in order to make an impact and actually to build. Uh, I'm sure all of us have been through school, and you know, failure was seen as being fatal. You know, you're marked in an education system where if you didn't get the right percentage, you failed. But who says that was right and correct? Yeah. In the entrepreneurship world, you know, failure is actually part and parcel of success. So, you know, if one thinks about it, you know, the world as we know it is experiencing some huge unprecedented change. You know, look around you. Nothing's normal. What is normal today? We talk about the democratization of exponential technologies. You know, we've gone from a world of scarcity to a world of abundance that has been brought about as a result of technology. If you think about it, you know, yesterday we were talking about how many photos could you take on a roll of film. Today, you're not limited by the number of photos on a film. You're limited by the space in the cloud. Literally, you could go and take photos on end until you fill up whatever cloud space you've got. So technology has essentially gone and changed what used to be very scarce and turned it into a world of abundance for us. We talk about exponential technologies, solar technologies, a whole bunch of stuff, Bitcoin, cryptos, a whole bunch of technologies that are essentially growing at an exponential rate and changing the way in which we do and live. Uh, Purpose has become a big buzzword. No matter where you go in the world, people are talking about purpose-driven people, purpose-driven organizations. And then another buzzword together with that is ecosystems. You know, it's not just about one directional movement of goods and services, but it's about this community that's created that supports one another, circular economies. Yeah. And then we talk about the UN SDGs. You know, there's 17 of them. And this is literally what we need to get right as humanity, because if we fail in any one of them, God help us all. So the question is, how do we make an impact? How do we nurture to transform? Now, the truth of the matter is there's no shortage of technologies, and there will never be a shortage of technologies because they keep on evolving. There's always new things coming about. Methodologies, there's a myriad of methodologies, but mindsets, that's now a different story. Because you could have the first two, but if you don't bring the right mindset to the table, how do you make all of this work together? And I like what Rajesh was talking about, nurturing kids from the ground up, because it's about developing that mindset up front around, you know, let's not become a product focused, let's become problem focused. But I want to take that a step further and say, don't become problem focused, become purpose focused. Because if you've got clarity around the purpose, you can then align a problem to it. And then you can talk about the solution. Yeah. So in terms of the purpose ecosystem that we've put together, we've got 4 elements. One is called Purpose Launchpad. Another is called Purpose Services. The other one's called Purpose Alliance and Purpose Evolve. I'll just talk through them very briefly. Our first and biggest thing that we do in terms of making change is we run global challenges. We've run several of them to date. Topics such as the future of education, the future of work, the future of unity, the future of the planet. It all began with COVID, like I said, last year, March. And, you know, these challenges are open to everybody. They're free. There's no cost of attending or participating. We provide access to our methodology for the challenge for free. So essentially, you could come together, ideate, work with a group of people, and create an initiative or a solution around a specific topic that we drive at a specific point in time. To date, we've had just over 4,500 people globally participate in various challenges. Our next challenge is actually in a few weeks' time, and literally, it's about COVID. We began with COVID last year, March, and now we're going to have another one on COVID because, I mean, if one looks at all the numbers and what's going on in India and Brazil and a number of other countries, you know, we need help. We need to come together as a society and as a community to help. So our next challenge is on the 29th of May. Registration closes on the 20th. I'll post a link for you guys at the end. Please do come along and join us. It's essentially a space for everybody to come together, work together with a grouping of people, and develop solutions around specific issues, in this case, COVID. Okay. Let's quickly talk about Purpose Launchpad and Purpose Alliance in our ecosystem. Like I said earlier, there's no shortages of methodologies. You've got the MTV Canvas community. Think about any question you have to ask an entrepreneur, and there's a canvas for it. Now, one of the biggest challenges I had in making this change, or actually in the startup world, was, there's so much information available. What do you use? When do you use it? How do you use it in order to move forward? Like I said, there's no shortage of it. So what Purpose Launchpad is, it's actually a meta methodology that pulls all of this together and strings them together in a way that allows a entrepreneur or a startup to actually go step by step from one phase to the other, and iterative in nature. You don't have to go all the way through. You could literally work across different sectors. And the goal behind Purpose Launchpad, it's actually an open source methodology, is to generate and evolve early stage ideas into purpose-driven organizations that make a massive impact. We have some principles around Launchpad, and I'll just go through the first few. Our first and most important principle is that it's purpose over problem and problem over solution. There's millions of solutions in the world looking for a problem to solve, but there's not a million problems that have been identified that people want to actually get solved. So let's get the mindset right. Let's begin first with purpose. What impact do you want to make on humanity? Be it local, be it regional, be it global, what impact do you want to have? Then let's talk about the problem, and then let's talk about the solutions. Yeah. The second principle is more exploration of optimization. Human beings, we explorers. Let's continue exploring until we find the right questions to answer, the right problems to answer, problems that have got size, scale, and impact. Yeah. Talking to customers over market research. I mean, there's no shortage of market research in the world. The question is that what your customer actually wants, or is that what the marketer believes you want? Yeah. So there's a number of principles here that essentially guide what we do in terms of Purpose Launchpad. Okay. And I'm going to focus on another one here in terms of mindset of a process and tools, because you could give you all the tools and all the processes in the world, but if you don't have an appropriate mindset of how to fit all of this together, continuous learning and a growth mindset, it doesn't make sense. So mindset's a huge component of what we do. And then learning over building. The focus is on learning. If you continue to learn, unlearn, and relearn, you can have a significant impact on the planet. Okay. Launchpad typically has 8 focus areas, or call them areas that we focus on. So purpose, people, customer, abundance, viability, processes, product, and metrics. And essentially, each of these are evaluated as an idea starts from 0 all the way through. And this is just giving you a practical example of a typical radar that we'll utilize to go from an idea to something that's impact making, and the way in which we evolve it. The goal literally is to evolve an idea step by step according to these 8 blocks until you've essentially got something that's impact making. You've got an idea today, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's an idea that your customer base actually wants. If you look around the world right now, there are many thousands of products that have been created that nobody wants. So we've got to flip this around and essentially begin with the customer in mind. And these are the elements of Purpose Launchpad that we utilize in order to do that. Like I said, the methodology is completely open sourced. So if you want to, you can download it. Go to www.purposelaunchpad.com. You feel free to go and download the actual manual. It's there. Please go through it, utilize it. It's our goal literally is to empower people. So, it's open to all. Over and above the Launchpad methodology, we've got certification programs going. We've got an essentials program, and we've got a Launchpad mentoring program where you could actually become a certified mentor with us and help startups and entrepreneurs. If I just look at the essentials program right now, we've just launched this about a month ago. Essentially, it's 12 videos, and literally it should take you between 1 and 2 weeks to work on it, together with assignments. And literally, so you work through the videos, you work through the content, you essentially do a number of exercises, a number of work programs, and then essentially you get to practice that with an actual certified mentor. And there's a number of mentors that have been certified to use the methodology. So essentially practice with them in a session. Yeah. And this is essentially the basic or the foundational building block of our certification. There's a mentor certification. I haven't brought that here, but if anybody wants to, I'll put my details at the end. You can reach out to me and we can talk to you more about that. There's also another component of the ecosystem called Purpose Evolver, and this is essentially a combination of methodology, which is Purpose Launchpad. Rajesh was talking about mentorship. Absolutely, mentorship's a huge component of what we do. And we've got a number of certified mentors that essentially work together with startups, to work together with entrepreneurs in order to help them evolve those ideas. But there's a third component here, which is community. At the end of the day, if you're working on something, if you're doing it alone, it's just you and the other person. But the moment you involve community, you unlock a huge amount of abundance. And for us, community is incredibly important because at the end of the day, you want to surround people with like-minded people in order to make an impact on the planet. So literally, our Purpose Evolver consists of all three of these areas. You've got a methodology, a mentorship, and also a community, which we're actively building. Right now, the community is just over 3,500, 4,000 people and growing by the day. Yeah. And these are purpose-driven doers and investors that we pull together. We also have purpose services, and these are more offerings at a corporate level that we do with organizations, where we could essentially do purpose definitions for them. We could help them with initiative generation in terms of purpose challenges, or it's tailored for them, and also initiative evolution through the Launchpad process. So going forward, really the question for me is this, there's 17 reasons for us to work together. Just to begin with, let's start with the SDGs. I'm sure there's a million other things to do, but let's start off with the 17. And the question that I really want to pose to everybody is this: what can I do to make an impact? What can you do to make an impact? We're all making an impact. The question is, individually we can make an impact, but if we come together cumulatively, we can create a multiplier impact. And, I'd love to essentially engage with people around that. So from our side, sign up on our newsletter. If you go to our website, www.purposealliance.org, essentially you could sign up for our newsletters, which go out. We have monthly programs, monthly initiatives and gatherings where we bring people together and talk about developments in the community and initiatives that we're working on. You could go and download the Purpose Launchpad guide. Like I said, it's open sourced. You can work through it by yourself. If you do want to work through it with a certified mentor, you've got that option as well. There are costs for that, but the actual methodology itself is completely open sourced, because at the end of the day, knowledge is power. So we'd like to empower as many people as possible with the methodology and understanding of how to do it. And for those of you guys that essentially want to go on and learn a little bit more about some of the methodology, we're running a little bit of a special for everybody on Catalyst that says, until the 10th. If you're part of Catalyst and you'd like to go onto our Essentials program, we'll put in a 10% discount there. There's a little code there which you can utilize to get a 10% discount on the cost of the Essentials program. The mentor that you'll work with will be myself. I'm the English-speaking master mentor for the Essentials programs. We've got Jose Tem, who's also on the call. He's actually the Spanish-speaking master. He also does English. And then the third one is Corina, and then there's Francisco, who's the fourth. We're actually growing the number of master mentors over time. Chikri, who's I think the co-organizer for this slot, is also one of our upcoming mentors. So, there's a large community that's going to start supporting this. Okay. That's me. If you need more information or questions, like I said, next steps, come and join us at our next Purpose Challenge. We talk about the SDGs, COVID having a huge impact on the planet. 29th of March is when we're actually having the challenge. The registration closes on the 20th. The details are here at the bottom, www.purposealliance.org. Under the challenges tab, you'll find all the details of how you can join us. That's it from my side, colleagues. Thank you so much for your time. Chakri, I hope I've kept to my timing. Yeah.
So quickly, as we open up the question and answer, I just want Sanjay to take the first question from Karis. What are the results of the Purpose Alliance challenges? It's not clear for me. Are they initiatives, ideas, products?
Sure.
And
So
we can take questions for everybody. Please go ahead, type it up in the chat.
Great. Thank you for that, Karis. Karis, a challenge is essentially a hackathon where you come up with early stage ideas. So out of a challenge, what you're coming up with early stage ideas that need to be evolved further. That's what we've been doing with most challenges to date. Over the last 3 challenges, we've also started experimenting, working with startups. So essentially a challenge has 2 types of outcomes. One is from a grouping of individuals that come together and they form teams, and essentially they come up with ideas that are essentially early stage ideas that need to be evolved in order to become a tangible impact making solution. So that's the one outcome. The second outcome is when we work with startups in this respective industry, the outcome there is an evolution of whatever they're working on and essentially a next step on it. Yeah. So I'll give you a practical example. We recently held a Future of Education Challenge in South Africa, which I organized literally about 2 months ago. From there, we had 3 startups that participated with us. Essentially, the startups during the challenge had an opportunity to work with a certified mentor and essentially evolve the initiative. At the end of the challenge, essentially, they had been given specific areas to focus on to essentially take their idea or initiative to the next level or the next step. Yeah. So that would be the first outcome. For those that want to take that ideas further on into actual impact making initiatives, we've got a dedicated evolution program that people can get on to turn those things into proper businesses thereon. Yeah. I hope that answers the question.
Great. Thank you, Sanjay. Quick question, Rajesh, from Melanie. What is the role of a mentor? Can you please elaborate on that, Rajesh? You're muted, Rajesh.
Yeah, I know. So the mentor, I look at it at different stages. So the early stage is to give them the tiniest little change in their life trajectory. Expose these children to something new, inspire them, stay with them, and build their confidence in following something. Okay, so if you really look at a child growing up, and the mentors make their show them new things and inspire them to go chase after those kind of things, and that is primarily what a mentor does. A mentor doesn't have to be an expert in anything. That's especially in today's day and age, information is freely available anywhere. It's what is lacking is inspiration. And if the mentor's job is to give that inspiration, and if you don't know something, that's fine. You say, well, let's learn together. That's fine. But just having that interaction and engagement, and that's all I ask my mentors to do. Just do things and get the kids involved, show them what you're doing. And that is all I got when I initially that made the change in me. So, yeah.
So let me take the next question. Yeah, sure, Sanjay. The next question is coming to you. So maybe you can add. How might we design competition phases of innovation challenges in a way that can instill purpose-driven mindset among aspiring entrepreneurs? This is question is coming from Selin.
So here's a question I'd like to throw back at Salman: is must it be a competition in order to develop a purpose-driven mindset? My view is not. I think at the end of the day, you've got to work with people wherever they're at. You've got to provide people with an equal opportunity. And depending on where people are at, the level of commitment, the amount of time, effort, and energy, and the urgency with which they work, you can plow more resources into them. But it's about meeting people where they're at. And purpose-driven mindset, a competition, literally, it's you competing against somebody else. How about we focus on you competing with you, and building people up to compete with themselves to make greater impacts on humanity. In my view, I think that would probably be a much better way of moving things forward. As far as developing purpose-driven mindsets, the reason we have challenges and the reasons we do what we do is to actually build that out. So thus far, we've had just over 4,500 people through our challenges. And, as we do more of this, as we engage with more people, the numbers are going to grow. And, with anything in life, it's not all 4,000 that will develop that mindset. But what you need is enough of the 4,000 to own it, to love it, and to work with it and spread it. And that's how we build. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you, Sanjay. We can keep taking questions, and we will just a quick action for you. Can you turn on your video so I can take a snapshot for later on? That'll
Actually,
be,
others should be able to ask the questions directly on voice.
yeah,
Instead of
absolutely.
typing it.
No, you can come up. Gareth, you have a question, just unmute yourself and come on board. I'm sure you're not shy in asking questions.
No, actually, I'm finding this fascinating. I think what you're all doing is fantastic and wonderful for the world, and I very, very much support this and want to learn more. My problem is I've got like 50 million questions. One of them is like, have you considered like creating an online school for like the kids who aren't even born yet? Like, we're going to add almost 1 billion people to the planet by 2050, and there's massive opportunity. That's one thing. But relatedly, I'm really curious about what data you collect. In particular, whether you collect attitudinal data about mindsets and maybe social emotional understanding and in particular overall growth. Because I think the data that we collect can make a really big difference. And what really matters is helping kids understand their own data. And then using that to help design their own learning pathways. And when you can do that, like kids' creativity absolutely like blows up, as you all know very well. So I'm just very curious to hear what your thoughts are on those kind of topics.
Gareth, if I can maybe take a stab at that. Let's start with all the things that's gone wrong with data today that we know of. Yeah, there's a certain social media company, we know all about them and all that they've done. Yeah, and they've collected a lot of data and they still continue to do. For me, the focus is really not on the data you collect. It's got to begin with, like I said, the principles that we use in Purpose Alliance: purpose, problem, then solution. So it begins with what you're setting out to do. And the problem you're seeking to solve. If you got clarity around your purpose and the problem, then your data must essentially support that. And it could be a myriad of things. It could be attitudinal, it could be social status. There's a whole bunch of stuff, but the most important thing about data is trust. So you could go out there and harvest the planet's data, but if you're going to do the wrong thing with it, my God. So trust is paramount. It's got to begin with purpose, problem, and in between there, a huge amount of trust. Yeah, that's my view on it. I hope that helps. Rajesh, maybe your views?
No,
Rajesh, as you continue, just give me a second. I want to just bring in Pepe for a minute. Pepe, I want to get your thoughts at this juncture, and I know you need to rush for another call. Go ahead, Pepe.
Well, thank you very much. As Sanjay was saying, we are all volunteers, also in Purpose Alliance, and we are doing different challenges. Actually, in 3 minutes, I am a speaker in the future of education in Spain. I do speak Spanish, Portuguese, French, and English. So if anybody would like to contact me, so we can speak in your languages. I see a lot of French-speaking people and some Portuguese. Probably one, Pedro, in Spanish. So I can answer your questions and we can contact through LinkedIn. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jose. I put Jose's LinkedIn link there. So thank you for joining us, Pepe. Rajesh, you were saying, I interrupted you. Apologies.
I know, I completely lost. Okay, so it asked about the data. I truly believe even the purpose needs data. Who says some purpose is good or what is bad? That needs data. So I don't think you can walk away from data even when you're defining the purpose and the process. Now, in my case, I was collecting data. Initially, when I was collecting data, I was collecting their demographic data on. I had this thinking that children from rich families have a tendency to become entrepreneurs, or children from educated families have an entrepreneur. So I collected data from all these kids about their past and their demographics and things like that, and looked at the collected data on their intention and confidence and all these kind of things change over the time. It's more of a longitudinal collect data, and I found that demographic had nothing. Any kid. So which kind of proves the point that you don't have to be born in a rich family, poor family, educated family, like middle born or first born, or none of those things make much difference. And but it is the impact. It is whoever makes a connection with the child, and whoever makes a inspires, they make all the difference in these kids. So yes, some data tells some interesting stories, and but data is required. Otherwise, you don't know what you're chasing.
So I want to bring in Hale El Hadji. Am I saying your name right? You have an interesting story. You want to share what you're doing okay, I'm going to ask you. I'm asking you to unmute. So I'm sure I'm not saying your name right. Let me just type it into this thing. So I just private messaged you. That's you. I'm not sure. There you go. You want to share something with us?
Yes, I'm here in. Yeah, I'm here. I'm here in Senegal, West Africa. In Senegal, I'm French speaking. I understand English, but my level is not high. I will try to to share something. What we are doing is very interesting here in our country in Senegal, because we need to develop in our schools the mindset of entrepreneur. Here, I'm an entrepreneur teacher here in high school in Senegal, and I'm a design thinking facilitator. What I'm looking is this kind of community in order to show our kids that we can change the world. You can become change makers like Indian, like American, like French, like everybody in the world. That's why I joined this Zoom, and I think it's very interesting. It's amazing. We have to work together in order to create an ecosystem to help our kids in Africa and everywhere else.
Absolutely, absolutely. We share your enthusiasm. I'll bring you in, Rajesh, in a minute. Neville had to step out. He had an emergency at home. But day before yesterday, Rajesh, Neville, when Neville saw this link to this program, and he just called me. And so together with Rajesh and with all of you, I think we wanted to take up the vision that everybody who's been born in 2020 or later, by the time they're 10 years old, they would have gotten a taste of real entrepreneurship, like what Gareth was saying. They can that they are able to get some videos, some mentorship, some online school which is free. They have the technology access. We figured it out through local partners, and they get the taste of it. And by age 10, they should be able to do that. And then, of course, everybody else, we pull them along as well. So I'll give it back to Rajesh. Just putting two things in the chat. I just want you all to tell me how you're feeling right now, and also take a quick survey. We will go on to Q&A as long as you're interested. We'll be in for some more time, but go ahead. Let me know how you're feeling right now, one word, and also take a minute or so to fill up the survey while we are continuing with the Q&A. Go ahead, Rajesh. Sorry.
So your ecosystem makes all the difference, because if the people are equally intelligent everywhere, okay, and I say that MIT creates some 250 startups a year. Those are official numbers. Then another maybe 200 or so unofficial ones, like Dropbox and all that. So a kid who joins it, and the kids who join there are exactly the same as kids who join anywhere else. They don't have two horns. There's nothing different. Okay, but they have been exposed to a lot more things, and that is the only reason they went through some of these things. But when the kid joins and the dorm room, what she sees is that other kids are talking about starting companies, and that becomes a norm for her. That is the ecosystem, power of the ecosystem. For her, that is the path, because everybody else is doing it. if you can create an ecosystem, you can change the community and the country. Because you already have, any country you take, you already have all the raw materials that you need. It's a question of creating the ecosystem where the things can spark and explode. And that is something we can create for the next generation. And that has been what I've been working on. How do you generate these ecosystems from the ground up, where it makes all the difference? From when you talk about top down, you're talking about glass buildings and all these kind of things. Bottom up is a very different story, you know.
So Pedro, if you're here, I want to bring you in. What do you want to ask? What do you want to add to this? Pedro, are you there?
I think Pedro's left. I don't see him anymore.
No. Pedro is there on my screen. Anybody else? Pradeep, Lucian, Tracy, Jack, Robin, Vikas, Navneet, Mohammed. Do you want to say something? The floor is yours.
This is Kunal. Can I say something?
Sure, absolutely.
So I think, first of all, Garrett's question was spot on, because we've been working on what he's been saying for almost 7 years now. And we were almost torn apart, because if you break down learning, there are 4 different segments. So there is the rote part, which is pretty popular in India, where you just mug up stuff and you give exams accordingly. The second part is actually applying that, and that is something which Rajesh and his the toolkit which he showed to us, it's trying to do that. But on a larger canvas, we need to get into the next 2 phases of learning, which is actually being able to really understand the bigger picture, which is like, without understanding entrepreneurship, economics, selling a product, making a product, failing, it'll be quite difficult for the kids to actually become entrepreneurs. And then the last stage is actually being able to connect dots with geographically different people. So for example, imagine if the kids had access to all the raw material. There is Google Glass, there is Google Classrooms, and there is a kid sitting in Ladakh, and there's a kid sitting in Finland, and there's a kid sitting in India. Can they actually test the same experiment at different weather conditions, or different raw materials, or different whatever? It will require a lot of heavy crunching, heavy data crunching. And we haven't been able to spot a lot of data scientists who would be interested in actually crunching that amount of data. Now, while you'll have brick and mortar schools, they'll almost be centers of excellence. But I truly believe the coming world has to be a hybrid classroom. There is no other way if we actually have to accommodate for personalized content, personalized curriculum, personalized assessment, almost creating a mentor facilitator group, and actually almost doing away with the traditional teaching system. It's going to require a lot of thought, but I certainly feel, as a proof of concept, something can easily be delivered at least across 10 different locations in about 3 years' time. We're already working on it. But like I said, just the bandwidth to actually figure out a way where a lot of qualitative data for every student can be crushed out, their gestures, their body language, their, parental information, etc. That's a lot of work. But again, as a proof of concept at a very small level, almost 150 kids in each school across at least 10 schools, 1,500 kids, over a period of 3 years is very, very doable if we have a dedicated, group. And it has to be a hybrid model. I don't see this scaling up with quality any other way.
Yeah, but I think I think we need to figure out ways of getting to everybody. And like Rajesh was saying, catch them young. But like Sanjay is saying, you can't leave anybody behind. I think everybody has an entrepreneur in them. Navneet, can I bring you in? Do you have anything to say regarding the healthcare?
I suppose you did. I suppose you just did bring me in. Thanks for inviting me. Really inspiring, learned a lot. Would love to continue to be engaged. In terms of saying something, as one of the previous speakers said, I have zillion things to say, try to sort it all through my mind, but I think one theme, if not one word, one theme that has been a recurrent theme for me for the last several months is the one I just typed in the chat and which Sanjay just alluded to, is trust. Regardless of what we do, if there is a trust deficit, we are going to continue to be stymied in our progress. If we can somehow together come to address the trust deficit, I think we will make a huge leap and let us attain earth shots before we attain moonshots. Chakri, as you know, engaged in a big moonshot sitting in Houston to address COVID. It was a grand plan, but it blew up on our faces, right? And there were several reasons for that. It was not for the lack of planning, lack of insight, a lack of salience, but trust was one of those elements because of which it blew up. So I think in all of your elements, if you can somehow bring that in mindfully, not just as a nebulous, faraway concept, but as something that is an integral part of our project plan. You're a project manager, that's the reason I use those terms. And if we can, we have quality management, time management, cost management. Let's have trust management, and really work towards that. I mean, those are my thoughts.
Lovely echo on the trust. Sanjay, you want to add to that?
I want to not onto the trust, but in the earlier question around data scientists. It's sorry, as you said that Kunal said, that struck a little bit of a nerve for me. Wherever I go, people talk about, I need this title of person. Yeah, I need a data scientist. I need a data capture or anything. And I look at this and I say, why do we put people in boxes? What if our education system and the way in which we engage with one another, we find ways to help people do what we need to do without labeling them? So I'll give you a practical example. There was, I can't remember the case, but I think it was a medtech a situation. It was a startup. And literally they were looking at analyzing, when they do a blood test for you, they look at, they take a picture of it. I don't know the exact terminology, but they were looking at patterns. And they turned it into a game. And essentially they spread this game far and wide into the community. And they asked the guys to spot they said, here's the normal of what we're looking for. If it doesn't look like the norm, just spot the anomalies. And usually what it would take weeks and months to analyze through a gamification approach, they were able to do that within a matter of days. Now I look at that as an example and I say, well, do you actually need lots of data analysts or data scientists? Can we look at these problems differently and say, how do we bring the community on board to help us look at these problems and apply their own minds to it? I think we complicate everything too much, and that's one of the big things in entrepreneurship and literally around, that people have to work around, is just our traditional thinking plugs us into a mindset and a mode of working that says, this is the logic, this is the systemic view on it. But you go and speak to a child and they look at it completely differently. And I think that's the part that we need to bring in order to create more successful entrepreneurs, in order to create a more innovative society. That's what we must learn, is the simplification of things, the identification of clear problems and building on from there. Yeah.
Lovely, Sanjay. I'd like to add to that, because last 10 years, I've been teaching a decision-making tool called the analytic hierarchy process. And one of the most fascinating examples of analytical hierarchy process is how the community comes together. Many of you may not know, but about 20 years ago, the US Navy lost a nuclear submarine, and they were trying to figure out how to find it. And so they did a community approach. They called everybody and anybody, didn't matter whether you're educated, not educated. And then when they polled 1,000 people and got their inputs from whatever information they needed, and they just took a simple average of these 1,000 inputs from diverse people, and they could locate the nuclear submarine within a mile of where it actually was. Otherwise, it was an impossible problem. They were expecting to work on it for 5 years to find this nuclear submarine. So the point being, as Sanjay was saying, I think community-driven data assessment, data sense making, and learning is absolutely key. And I think as entrepreneurs, if you're clued in with your community, if you're clued in with your customers, I think the sense making is a lot more easier. And I hope I got the sense of what you were saying, Sanjay, right? Robin, you're silent. I want to pull you in. You and Yasmin are the only women left in the room. I want to, if you're there, I want to hear your 2 cents. Pradeep, Pedro, Vikas, Mani, anything to say? Give you 10 seconds. Otherwise, we close the session. There are no other questions. Gareth, lovely meeting you. HG, I'm sure we will link with. I'm not saying your name right. Sorry for that. All of you, look forward to connecting with you on LinkedIn and any other.
The name is LRG. LRG.
LRG.
Yes, LRG.
Yeah.
Yes.
Rajesh, can you say that after me?
LRG.
There you go. Sanjay,
Yeah.
there you go.
So I'd love to hear from.
It's El Haji.
Yes, El Haji. Yes, El Haji.
Not the spice LG.
Okay. All right.
Sorry, El Haji. I just had to bring that up.
No problem. I understand. It's very difficult to pronounce that. I understand. No problem.
So I'd love to hear. I'd love to hear from anyone. You know, I left an email at the bottom, but I'll do it again. But love to hear from anyone and see if we can pick up a discussion after this. So
absolutely, Pedro. I was hoping you would unmute and speak, but message is fine.
His mute button is stuck. So
his mute button is stuck. Fine. So Gareth, I'm hoping that this is the beginning of a wonderful relationship. Now I'll let you go.
You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. I don't even remember how I got into this, but the universe works in mysterious ways, and I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
Lovely. There you go. There you are, Mani.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Mani, you want to say something? You've been silent. We can hear your voice.
Unfortunately, I arrived late by invitation. Thank you, Pedro. It's been really interesting. I think Sanjay has a really strong point. I'm a designer by background, so I think Sanjay has a really strong point in terms of using empathy and communication, and actually dealing with stuff on a human level to solve problems. But again, I can completely see the value in data-driven design around this stuff as well. I wonder, what does everyone think? What is a good time to start implementing these kind of educational tools or services to people in order to get them thinking in an innovative, entrepreneurial, and like sustainability focused, ecologically focused way?
So a couple of views on that. If you talk to Petra Rees in South Africa, she'll say 3 years old. So she's having kids draw things and then has a 3D printer next to her. And the kids 3D print what they have just drawn or what they've imagined. So I don't think there's an age limit to it. But what data has found is that you catch them earlier, it's easy. The most learning happens by the time they're 5 to 7 years old, which is almost kindergarten and beginning school. But Rajesh wants to catch them before they're 15 years old, before they leave school. Whereas Sanjay and I, we are not discriminatory, we are not ageist. We will catch them at 70 if they come to us at the time. Yeah, Rajesh, you want to add to it?
I think they should do this when they can hold a crayon. Okay, they should be able to start designing and creating anything. And at that age, they're like dry sponges. They can suck in anything that is thrown at them. We don't see them, the learning change, and we don't give them enough experiences, and because those are the experiences that build them. Question is, how do you create those kind of experiences where they can learn at that age? I believe, I remember, this is a backstory, almost 27 years back when my daughter was born. I created this thing where I thought she could learn music and such while she's in the crib. I'm a hacker, so I created all these kind of mechanical stuff, and idea was that if at that point, if she can make out between 5 different kinds of music types and shapes and sizes while lying up, looking up in the crib, yeah, those are things that she can experience early on. If she has that knowledge, maybe she can connect and understand the new thing. In all these cases, if you know A, B, and C, you can figure out D, E, and F. But if you don't know the first 3, it's harder to teach the next 3. Okay, and question is, how do you just give them as many experiences as possible? And there is a movement to teach them coding, and I cannot understand that at all, because they have not understood systems. They don't understand how things work, but parents want to show them write Python coding, coding, and so there is stuff happening in India, 6-year-old, 5-year-old creating this, and parents are happy to show off, but I don't know if they actually understand how things connect, how things move, before you even start the logic part, So I have serious opinions on these kind of things. So at the end of it, I think, if in a short way, I want to say, give them as many experiences as possible,
Thank you. I'm actually working on like a 2-week intensive kind of micro accelerator course for 13 and 14-year-olds in the UK, and it's like it's a business design. This is what I'm calling it, a business design thinking course, which is focused on encouraging entrepreneurial thought and innovation thinking, but also having like a very life-focused design. So it's very focused on sustainability and B Corp principles and that kind of stuff. So that's just literally something I'm working on right now. I'm working on a prototype. So this is really interesting. I've just popped into this, and I've not heard many people speak about this. This is thank you. I look forward to connecting to you on discussing.
So Mani, on that topic, I believe, how do we teach them to break the fear of learning? That is first thing. Once they break the fear of learning, it's kind of easier for them to. How do you, as I said, teach them to think in systems? I'm not talking about systems in any other way, how things connect and have a different behavior than the parts that it's made of. And then they can understand social issues, because they know what are the building blocks that connect to that. So the analysis ability and the self-learning ability, the curiosity, the very, very raw things, how do we teach them before we actually ask them to go solve problems? And that, because when I talk about this thing, people think they should start companies early on so that they can show they are entrepreneurial. And no, entrepreneurship is not exactly about any of those things. Entrepreneurship primarily is a few qualities that they build up. They can use that to create a company, but they can use that to do a lot of other things. So how do we teach entrepreneurship with small e, rather than the big capital E? And so that requires a whole bunch of other kind of exposures and building the certain confidence and mindset and such. So.
Rajesh, have you guys considered actually creating a school absolutely from scratch, like an offline school, where this can be started really, really early up, like almost on a 60-70 acre campus with about 150?
I would love to.
Students?
So, I used to run, I set up the first Fab Lab in South India in my ancestral home. And I used to bring, every time I was flying through India, I would say, put it up on Facebook or something, and people would come and stay with me for a week. I had printers and electronics and all these kind of things, and kids would come and say, okay, only thing is all college students, you all stay here, you have 24/7 access to all these things. It is like there's a concept in India called Gurukul. That means your teacher's home, where you live with the teacher and learn, okay, and hire a cook, and we stay there and you do all kinds of crazy build up and designs and things. I would really love to take it to the next level. I was planning to move to inner city communities and try to, so I'm trying to make the same thing happen in Fitchburg, Massachusetts, when I go back, to see how do you start to do these kind of intervention in minority communities where children grow up becoming what they see around them, and how do you change their aspiration? How do you show them other things? How do you build their own inner propulsion, okay, that actually takes them beyond what their local community says they can? And those are the kind of things that I'm kind of trying to deal with. And I truly believe it is all mostly it comes from within, not from outside. And how do you power up all those things inside? Fire up all those things inside.
Rajesh, can I ask a question? Or strictly maybe, I've counted the number of times you use the word teaching, and I counted about 15.
Yeah.
And I have a pet problem with that word.
Yeah, I too. I use it as a stand-in for a lot of other things. I'm sorry. Yeah, I know.
No. But I want to maybe just bring that up. It's just, and Mani, maybe back to you. We talk about teaching, and when I ran organized the purpose of the Future of Education Challenge in South Africa, we had a series of keynotes in the run up to the actual challenge. And some of the guest speakers actually, they said a couple of things that just scarred me in a better way. And they said, it's not about teaching, but it's about learning, and it's about creating spaces for them to learn. Yeah. And literally, I've sort of, maybe it's just me, but I've got this little, I made this beeline for challenges, and I thought, do you need to teach them, or could you set them a challenge that could enable them to learn?
Yeah,
and what
I'm totally with you. Actually, the whole education system today is a teaching system, not a learning system.
But Sanjay and Rajesh, I need to qualify this. Thanks, Kunal, for joining. I think learning is kind of also an overused word. So I'm doing a course with Eastside Institute in New York City, and this is about creating communities of hope. And the first thing we are figuring out is what is the difference between learning and developing. I learned a lot of things, but I have not developed. And then you lost this whole thing on learning.
Apply. Learning with context, learning with relevance. That is
application and
learning with application. That is how you learn.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think, like Mani was saying, I think there needs to be physical spaces, but also needs to be, there is no limit to it. Physical, online, any way. And Kunal was saying blended. I think now I'm convinced, and Neville had to drop off, but I think some of us, we want to make sure that that this happens for every child, no child left behind type of thing. So I think it needs to go through. And Rajesh, as soon as you get to the US, I'm hoping that you will go and find some funds for all of us to make this happen. And
Rajesh, whenever you're back in the States, you can check up a researcher in Purdue known as Lisa Bossman. Lisa was my junior at Clemson, and she went ahead and became a prof there. She's working on a very low-cost 3-hour intervention-based hack school just outside of Purdue, which is run by the communities. And she's a very, very interesting researcher. You can check her out. Her name is Lisa Bossman.
I'm looking at her right now. Yeah.
So if I can just jump in, I realized, because I was trying to be as brief as possible when I was explaining it, when I say a course, it's not, I'm not teaching people stuff. It is a challenge. So the kids actually have to work together in a group to set a business up within 2 weeks. And then they have to tell the story at the end. They start with a mission statement, and then they work through like lean, agile thinking, design thinking, methodologies and that kind of stuff. So they prototype and all that kind of stuff. So they're learning themselves, and at the end they have to present their entire program, their business and all that kind of stuff. And the way they do that, they go to an assembly in front of all the other school kids, all of their colleagues at school, and they have to explain their project and their whole learning process, which again, the best way to learn is to teach, right? So going through that process means they really get a solid understanding of everything they've just been through. And again, they get to create a business out of it, and it encourages them because there's a cash prize at the end of it for the best ideas. And hopefully that's going to go on to like regional and national competitions, so the pitches will be encouraged like that. So it wasn't just teaching, because I don't believe in just teaching.
Yeah. Mani, just to comment there, check out the Planet Pilot. It's actually an initiative that was started up by a colleague, Lars Lin, and Crystal too from Vietnam. They're actually doing similar to what you're talking about, and literally took kids on a sprint, literally over weekends, doing exactly that. They've actually pivoted from there, and one of the reasons for that is, at the end of the day, it's who do you have to work through to get to the kids? It's the parents. And one of the greatest challenges, we've got the best of intentions to help children, but if the parents have got let's just call it an alternate mindset, it does not help. So one's got to essentially find the parents with that sort of mindset to find the children, and that's just been some of their learning. So just check out Planet Pilot. It needs to be, I've just put my contact details there on LinkedIn. Just connect with me and I'll try and put you in touch with Crystal or Lars. They can probably share with you what they've done there as well. I think it may be worth you all to engage them. Yeah.
Thank you, Sanjay.
Same, Rajesh, on your side as well. I think it'd be good to just connect you guys. I mean, they're doing a lot of stuff in tech. I think there's some great synergies there.
So we have Pedro on video. Great. I think you want to say something, please.
Hi, yeah. Sorry, just I didn't want to be rude. I mean, I'm with my son today because it's bank holiday in the UK, so it's hard to find a chance to speak. So I've just been texting the chat, and yeah, just to say, yeah, I do exist. I'm not a bot in the chat. Yeah, great lessons from all of you. Thank you for sharing about your different programs. And yeah, I met with Manny this week, so I thought it was relevant for him. So I brought him into the conversation. And yeah, look forward to having separate conversations beyond. So I just finished working for a social enterprise in the innovation space, and I also wear a hat of a B Corp advisor. So I'm really interested in bringing that framework to to kids, to teenagers, anyone who's looking to start a business, because that's where you start, right? You start from the using that framework from the beginning, where they're young and when the business is young as well, to do it correctly, do it with heart and empathy and passion. Yeah, so sorry, I just need to look after the young man again. He is being creative and entrepreneur with his Lego, so I'll go and make sure he keeps doing that.
Yeah.
Good to meet you.
Lovely. Yeah, great. I think good point. I think one of the things that for me, about 8 years ago, when I saw this TED Talk video of an African kid who saved his barn animals from an invention of his, that's unbelievable entrepreneurial mindset and entrepreneurial thinking or entrepreneurship, whatever you want to say that. But the biggest lesson for me at the end of the day, and why I want everybody on the planet to be an entrepreneur, is you have to solve your own problems. Nobody else will solve your problem for you. And the only way I feel to solve your problems is through this entrepreneurial thinking. And that's why I'm here. And that's what I think the last 3 months in Catalyst, I've been carrying this banner, and I managed to pull Rajesh in and Robin in. I want to pull everybody in. If not anything else, Mani, Pedro, Sanjay, Helaji, that Catalyst gives a nice platform for us to come together and have access to funders and access to NGOs in all the countries of the world. And I think what I was hearing from you is it needs to get everywhere and can get everywhere real quickly. The only problem I'm prioritizing over entrepreneurship right now is that I want to make sure that the kids don't go hungry. That's the only thing that I'm prioritizing right now. But with Rajesh and in Catalyst as well, we're going to wave the entrepreneurship banner, and now looking for partnerships with Purpose Alliance and Catalyst on a organizational level. So this will become on the agenda for sure. So joining Catalyst is very easy. Maybe I can have Yasmin put a link in the chat. Otherwise, just go to Catalyst 2030 webpage and you should be able to do that. It's a very nice forum, member-driven, community-driven. It's free, and your voice is heard, clearly heard. I was very surprised by that. And thanks, Yasmin. She has put in that link for membership. I'm just wanting us to organize in a way we don't, where all of us come together. I don't want to create more and more WhatsApp groups and all of that. Clearly, we are getting organized, I think, with Rajesh and a couple of others. Entrepreneurial ecosystems, creating the whole world to be one ecosystem for entrepreneurs anywhere. I think that's something that we can have on the Catalyst 2030 agenda, and do this in a unified way. With that, Yasmin, I want you to have the last few words to close the session. Over to you.
Thank you for putting me on the spot. But yeah, a very interesting discussion. I work at the Secretariat, so I'm used to doing a lot of behind the scenes work to kind of push Catalyst forward. So always very nice to hear everyone's ideas. And yeah, there's so many sessions this week. So if any of this has caught your attention, I think we're at over 100 sessions. So yeah, have a look, and I'm sure there'll be something else that you'll be interested in.
Okay.
Question, Yasmin, before you go, will the sessions be recorded? So if you aren't able to attend some of them, we can go back and check them out?
Yeah,
but it's
exactly.
important to register, right? You can only get access if you register. That's
no. So yeah, they will be recorded and uploaded to YouTube, so anyone can watch.
Yeah, it'll be open source. You don't have to register to get the recording. That is for sure. It'll be on the website as well, I think, from the website. So that's the idea, that to link to all the sessions recorded as well.
Yes.
Maybe we might take the Q&A out of here. I don't know, Yasmin and others at Secretary figured that out. But the whole thing will be available. Lovely connecting with you, Mani. Navneet, any last words, or are we ready to close?
Thanks for inviting me. Much appreciated. Look forward to being engaged with you guys in some shape, capacity, or form. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you to invite me too. And I look forward to be partnered with you here in my country.
Absolutely. We'll look for you from Senegal to wave the flag from there. Lovely. Yasmin, please do the honors, and yeah, we can
press
close
the
the session.
press the stop button, and that's it.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Okay, take care. See ya.